Hi, this is Scott Brady, and I'm the owner and president of Progressive Property Management. And I want to spend a little time with our owners, our prospective owners, about our contract, because that's obviously a very important agreement between us. And I just want to go over that using here this Zoom feature. So we'll start out. You'll notice that it says it's a manager agreement. We're a broker, a real estate broker, and we have a broker's license on here, but we are the manager for you. And as I always say, we are here to be the wall between you and the tenant and to manage your property. So rather than saying broker throughout the agreement, it will say manager. And some of our other documents, you'll see the word broker interchangeably. In order to manage properties in the state of California, you have to be a broker. So we, of course, are a broker. So let's start by saying that's our broker's license number right there is 0195885 at Progressive Property Management, Inc. So all of our contracts have a term. There's a start date and an end date. Typically, our management agreements are 1 year in length. Doesn't need to be. And then after that, they become month to month. So you may have an agreement for 1 year. And then after that time, it does become month to month. You can cancel that contract with 60-day notice at any time. You will notice in this agreement here in the first section that the only time you can't cancel at any time with a 60-day notice is if we secure a tenant for you, and then there's a 6-month period. So you'd cancel on month 4. We don't make money securing a tenant for you. We make money managing a property. So if you're just using us to get a tenant and then cancel us, well, that's not really fair. So we want at least a 6-month period. Section 3 talks about the powers we have, the authority we have. We have the authority to lease your property and put in the multiple listing service. We have the authority to sign contracts on your behalf, both with vendors and with, of course, tenants. On Section 3B, typically we're going to charge something called the tenant acquisition fee. It depends on the agreement we have with you. Could be as high as 40%, could be lower if it's a multi-unit building. And we give you an example of what that will cost for you depending on a $1,500 a month lease. That tenant acquisition fee is based on an entire month's rent. We place the tenant there on the 20th. It's not based on 10 days, but on the entire 30 days. The tenant's you. It belongs to you. So if for some reason we were to go away, I were to, God forbid, die, or you decide to fire us, so be it. But you inherit the tenant. They belong to you. So on this section, again, still in B, that we typically rent is due on the 1st of the month, and it's late at the 5th. So the tenant then has a grace period. So it's due on the 1st. If they pay by the 5th, they're fine. If by the 6th we've not received the rent, that's going to trigger, in this section, it calls a 3-day notice to quit. So as long as the 6th falls on a court date, Monday through Friday, then we'll post a 3-day notice to quit. And then the tenant has 3 court days to pay. So let's say the 6th falls on a Friday, Saturday doesn't count, Sunday doesn't count, then they would have the 8th, 9th, and 10th by 11:59 p.m. to pay their rent. And all they're subject to is a late fee. And you'll see in this section, if they do pay the late fee, we retain 50% of that for the extra work we had to do when we forward you the balance. So we keep 50% and you get 50% of the late fee. The late fee will be outlined in the lease agreement with the tenant. But once again, typically for our contracts, we charge 5% as a late fee. The rest is pretty normal. The one interesting thing in here, we do use credit cards, and on some of those credit cards, if we're buying dishwashers or maintenance, whatever it might be on your behalf, we do earn points, and we use those points for our personal benefit. Typically, I use it for travel to conferences to become a better broker and property manager. So repair and maintenance, once again, this is our default is $350. So if the cost to repair or maintain your property is under $350, we don't need to get your approval. If it's over $350, then we need approval for you to spend that money, and typically we need to get 2 bids as well. Oftentimes you'll have a property manager will call you because a vendor's at your property and says, it's going to be $425. We'll call you and say, is it okay if we go ahead and use that vendor? You say yes, as opposed to taking more time to get 2 bids. That can be different. We have some people with big multi-unit buildings, and that reserve can be as high as $1,000 or $2,000. But generally, it's never below $350, so we can get our job done for the smaller stuff. Anything over $350 is going to be bigger, right? It's going to be a water heater, dishwasher. Anything under $350 is going to be smaller, and typically a plumbing issue. Let's keep going. Vendor requirements. So you may have your own vendors you like, and that's fine. We're happy to use your vendors, but they need to be approved by us. And we're going to get their tax ID number. We're going to get their license. If applicable, we're going to get, of course, an insurance policy from them. And if they need to be licensed, we're going to get the license. So we have to approve your vendor. So we have a lot of owners that have a gardener, and the gardener does have insurance. We will not pay that person because that shows causality, and I could be sued if they chop their foot off. They could sue me and you. So if you have a vendor you want to keep and they're not going to get approved because typically you don't have insurance, you have to pay them directly, any vendor for us. We also have some which are preferred vendors. These are vendors that we give a lot of business to. We do manage a lot of properties, and we also manage associations, homeowner associations, and they've agreed to pay us 10% of the invoice as a discount. There's no additional cost to you. And that's just a few of our people are those kind of preferred vendors and some of our bigger ones. Section I just goes through, this is, you can once again read through this. K is important. So the default here, it says that the shall be given, typically this is going to be checked and it's placed in the manager's trust account. So we maintain a trust account that's audited by the Department of Real Estate, doesn't earn any interest. And we would prefer to keep the security deposit. And the answer is very simple. If you keep the security deposit, you can spend it, you do anything you want to with it. If we keep it, we have to keep it in a trust account. And if the tenant moves out and we keep the trust account, the security deposit in our trust account, and the tenant contests how much we deduct, we go to court on your behalf and we don't charge you for that. So the tenant takes us to small claims court, says we charge too much, we're happy to go there for you on your behalf. But if you keep the security deposit and you keep too much money and the tenant decides you've debited too much, you get to go to court. So it's in your best interest for us to hold the money into a trust account. It relieves you of that responsibility. Section L goes through the trust account. We have our trust accounts an analyzed trust account. And so the bank that we use, we currently use Seacoast, but we could change that. They do give us a financial benefit for using them, and they pay some of our bills. And they also, more importantly, the trust account it doesn't cost me money. And we do a lot of business out of our trust account. We talked about the reserves. Once again, the maximum we can spend is $350 from the previous section. So typically the reserve is going to match the $350. As I mentioned before, some of our owners, if we're paying your homeowner's dues, we're paying your gardener, and we're paying property taxes, then the reserve has to be bigger than $350. We can't spend other people's money on your behalf. So if we're spending every single month, say $600 on different vendors, then we need at least $600 in reserve. Legally, we can take out a security deposit if we have it. We prefer not to. On disbursements, so for most of our owners, the only thing we pay on their behalf are their maintenance and the repairs. But if we're paying your HOA bill, you check this box. If we're paying landscaping, check this box. Rarely do we pay property taxes. We don't want that obligation. God forbid we'd be late. And most of our owners pay their own property taxes, insurance, and all the rest. You'll notice that we get paid first. So once we receive rent and the rent's $2,000, our management fee is, call it $100 or whatever, $110, then that comes out first. Then we pay any bills you have. We reimburse our reserves accounts if we paid bills, and then you get paid last. And this will be all in your accounting, and you'll see exactly what came out and how. We do, some property management companies do their disbursements to their owners like at the end of the month. We don't like to do it that way. So when we receive your good funds, within 3 days of the funds becoming good and clear, then we're going to turn around and send your money, whether it's electronically or with a check. So we do a one-time disbursement. We have some owners with 3 or 4 or 5 even more properties, and they want us to do a disbursement on the 10th, and then a disbursement on the 15th, and then the 20th. So the one disbursement a month's free, but if you want us to do additional disbursements, there's a $10 fee. You're going to get an owner statement every month, either mailed to you or in your portal, and you always want to check that. Q is important. I'm not going to spend my money on your behalf. So if you only have $300 in a reserve account and we've got a $500 bill, I'm not taking $200 out of my account and paying for it. We would ask you to put my money into your account so we could pay that bill for you. The scope of work, you've seen what we do. I mean, this is for our clients, full professional property management. But if you ask us to do something that's outside of property management, and you say, what could that be? Well, that might be, for example, you want us to meet an appraiser. that's not property management. That's doing an errand for you. Then we charge $30 an hour, and with a minimum fee of $50. This rarely comes up, but if it does, that's in there just for that reason. We do include, depending on the programs, on some we charge for an inspection, on others we don't charge, but whether we charge or not, we want to do an annual inspection on your property. And that's typically going to be 75 days before the lease is up, so we can decide if we're going to keep that tenant or give them notice. But if you want our property managers to do additional inspection, and then when I say inspection, that's not a full report. That's just walking through the property and checking to see if they have additional pets or unauthorized occupants, and that's a $50 fee. We have our 8 performance guarantees, and we want you to go through and read these. The point of the performance guarantees is that if we don't perform as promised, as guaranteed, then we pay a real financial price. And that's all these guarantees are meant to reinforce that. I want our property managers to perform. I want our branch managers to do what they're supposed to do. And if they don't, then you may not have to pay for that month's management fee if they don't return a call, if they don't secure the right tenant. We have responsibilities and you have responsibilities. So you're to provide all the records and documentation. You can read through this. The big one that you'll see in here is indemnification. So if you do something that warrants a lawsuit, if you do something that you're liable for, We're indemnified from your actions. Now, if we do something wrong, then we're going to be liable. But this indemnifies us from your behavior. Section E is very important. A lot of owners drag their feet on this one, but we are asking to be named as additionally insured to your insurance policy. Shouldn't cost you anything. Just requires typically a call to your insurance company. And the reason why we're asking for this is that if we get sued, say the tenant decides to sue both of us, and we're not additionally insured, then of course I've got an attorney, you're going to hire an attorney. And, most law firms don't want us arguing with each other. We want us both on the same page. So we're not pointing the finger at you. Hey, we told the owner to do this and they wouldn't do it. And you're pointing the finger at us. Say, well, I told them if we're additionally insured, we're both going to be covered by the same insurance company or be on the same page going against the tenant. Because obviously we're going to think we're right and the tenant's wrong. So that's why we require you named additionally insured, not additional interest. That simply tells us if you pay your bill or not. Additionally insured and we're named in the policy. Here's a hold harmless clause, indemnification, kind of going again, that you're liable to pay your bills, pay reasonable expenses, allow us to do our job, and you can read through that whole section. Tax withholding. So if you are located out of state and you do not get a Franchise Tax Board Form 588 approved by the Franchise Tax Board, then we have to do a quarterly withholding. It's required by law. We do get audited. If you get the 588 form approved by the Franchise Tax Board, we don't have to do the withholding. We don't want to do the withholding, but sometimes they will not approve your waiver. And the typical reason is that you haven't owned the rental long enough, you haven't filed tax returns yet with that property. They have their reasons. And if it's denied, then we do charge $50 quarterly fee, and we do withhold 7% of the gross rents, report that to the state, and when you file your tax returns, they have that money in hand. So that's what, if you have a California address, it's a moot point. Lead-based paint. If your home's older than 1978, you have to disclose that to us, and then we have to give a lead-based paint form to your tenant so they know what the ramifications of lead in the paint is. Compensation is important to us, of course, is how we're going to get paid. So once again, it depends on what we've agreed to with you. We typically charge now a flat fee. We call it hybrid pricing. A flat fee plus a % of the rents collected. And that could depend on the program you pick, correct? Typically, we'll retain 50% of the late fees. Our tenant acquisition fee, again, can be as high as 40% and as low as 25%, depending on the type of property. The renewal fee on one of our programs, we do charge the owner a renewal fee, and that's to renew that lease and that agreement with the tenant. And on one of our programs, we charge an inspection fee, an annual inspection fee. On other programs, we don't. So once again, this will be completed as per our agreement. We do have a minimum fee. So if a tenant's in your property and they stop paying, they start performing, we'll charge a minimum fee of $75. If the property is vacant, we don't charge you because that's part of a tenant acquisition fee. So this is if the tenant's in the property and not paying. The tenant partial pays. We're right now in the pandemic, and a tenant can't pay $3,000, they pay $1,500. We do earn our entire fee. But if they zero, then we charge a minimum fee. Again, we kind of went over the work beyond our scope. If you want us to do on section H3, if you want us to do a second inspection annually, where we actually take a report and we send it to you, and it's very detailed, that's a $75 fee. Most of our owners are okay with the one annual inspection, but if you want more, we're happy to do so. Section J is we do have tenant programs, and you allow us to keep those fees we charge to tenants. The tenant has to agree to it, of course. So it kind of goes through some of the programs here. We offer a residence benefits package. We offer a renewal option program. We have, of course, a pet protection program, an owner protection program. We'll go some of those later on some of those programs. But this is just telling you that we have the right to keep those fees, which charged to a tenant, and the tenant agrees to those fees. I don't own a few companies, and I have to disclose that to you. We do own association management company, a couple real estate companies, and we do have a maintenance company as well. Section 12, so if your property is in a local rent stabilization, or you have Section 8, we have the right to charge you more. It's not automatic. We'd have to be disclosed to you, but Section 8 takes more work. Depending on the rent control area, it takes more work, and so we would charge more. Also, some local entities have an annual inspection, so the housing authority goes to the property with us, and they walk through the property, give us a report. There'd be an additional $75. 14 is important. So this is our pet protection program. So some of your tenants have pets, and you decide to allow them to have a pet on your property. That's great. The tenant has two options. They can go to petscreening.com, and they pay a fee, and they fill out a lot of paperwork. They fill out their licensing, their vaccination, the name of their doctor, all that stuff, a photo, and they fill it all out. And depending on the rating, petscreening.com gives them a PAW score from 1 to 5. 5 would say the pet's perfect, no issues. 1 is it could be a problem, then we charge the tenant a varying fee. Or if they don't want to fill out petscreening.com, just don't have the time or attitude, then we charge $30 per pet per month. And for you, what you get for that is that we're going to guarantee up to $1,000 of damage per pet over and above your security deposit. So let's say you have a security deposit of whatever, $3,000, and they leave, and all of a sudden there's only $3,000 of damage to the property or loss of rent, whatever could happen, but there's $1,000 of pet damage. We'll pay for that out of our pocket. 15 is critical. The only thing we require, we have 10 optional owner and tenant programs. They are optional. It's not optional for your tenant not to provide liability insurance. They need to provide it either from, they have to show us evidence that they've acquired it, or we're going to charge them monthly. We have an automatic policy that's $1,250 a month, and that gives you $100,000 of protection with no deductible. And why is that important? So if the tenant, let's say the tenant has a grease fire, they just leave the oven on, walk away, and it causes $50,000 of damage to your property. If the tenant doesn't have liability insurance, then you're going to have to sue them. And what are the chances the tenant has $50,000? Probably 0. By having this insurance, now they can provide this insurance. Sometimes we'll call it renter's insurance. Renter's insurance also provides coverage of their personal property. So if that grease fire also burned their couch to the ground, they can get the couch replaced. But we require your tenant to have it. Either we're going to charge them $1,250, or they're going to show us evidence. If you're the owner for number 16 priority owner program, you're an owner who wants your proceeds on the 1st. So the tenant doesn't pay on the 1st. Tenant pays on the 3rd. It takes 3 days to clear. You're getting your funds by the 12th or the 13th. We have some owners who just want their money right on the 1st, want to wire it on the 1st, even though we've not received rent yet. We'll do that. We're going to take the money out of the security deposit and forward it to you. Tenant has to agree to it. And we charge $30 for that on a monthly fee to make sure you get your money day one in your pocket. Renewal option, more and more with rent control, it's not as needed as it was before, but if you agree to it, we'll charge the tenant $15 a month. And if they behave, you can see what we define as behave: no lates, only 1 late, don't violate homeowner associations, no lapse in renter's insurance, no damage after a year, or only $500 or less in damage, then they automatically renew the lease, and we don't charge them. We only charge them 2% over the CPI, which right now would be about 5%. 18 is probably one of our most popular programs. We believe you should be collecting 2 months rent as security deposit. State law allows 2 months rent. And too many of our owners say, you know what, they only have 1 month, let's do 1 month. Well, here's the problem with that. So you collect 1 month's rent as security deposit. and let's say the rent is $2,000, and the lease is going to expire on June 30th, and they give us notice on June 1st, tell you what, we're going to be moving June 30th, and we're not paying rent. Use our security deposit for rent. Okay, that's illegal. It says in our contract they can't do that, but they do it anyway. What can we do? Nothing, very little. We can hit them with a 3-day notice to quit. We can say that if they don't move out, we're going to evict them. But by the time we get to court, they'd already be gone. Then we could try to commit for financial damages, but it's a separate court case, and that costs you $1,500. So the bottom line is we recommend you really require 2 months rent to security deposit. But if the tenant is unwilling or unable to come up with the second month, we will charge them between 1% to 2% of the monthly rent, depending on their credit score. So if the rent were $2,000 and they had good credit, we charge them $20 a month. And then if they do damage beyond the 1 month's rent, in this case $2,000, so they create $3,000 of damage, then we will pay for the other $1,000 up to 1 month's rent. We don't pay for loss of rent, just damage to your property. But here's the good news to the tenant, and it's down here in this section. If they leave the property in good condition and it's normal wear and tear, then we will refund 25% of the fee we've collected to that date. So if we've collected $800 and they leave the property in good condition, I'll write them a check for $200. So it's in their best interest to leave your property in good condition. Strongly recommend you allow us to offer this program to your tenant. I want them to come 2 months rent or borrow money from family. I don't care, but if they can't, then they have this option. The other program that almost all of our owners participate in is the owner protection plan. We are legally not allowed to charge you a monthly fee and give you eviction protection. The Department of Real Estate has decided that's an unearned fee, meaning that if I'm charging you eviction protection, but I never evict a tenant, then I didn't really earn that fee and I have to give it back to you. Well, of course, but I might evict it a year from now or 2 years from now. So, but I can charge your tenant. So we charge your tenant $15 a month. And if we have to evict that tenant or any future tenant at your property who's paying that fee, we pay for the cost of eviction. We waive our eviction oversight fee of $300, and then we pay up to $1,000 in legal fees. So it saves you a lot of money. And we tell the tenant, this is the way it has to be. We can't charge the owner, and it's a $15 fee for the owner protection. They understand and they pay the fee. So this is another program you can participate in. Preferred property, you can look at this one. This is a program we're rolling out right now. So if you want a home warranty, and there's good reasons why you may want it. So for $65 a month or 3% of your rent, whichever is higher, we'll provide that home warranty through American Home Shield. Also, if you pay $20 more a month, we'll also include 4 hours annually of maintenance work. It'd be carpet cleaning, fixed, the tenant, we have to turn the property, get it ready, market ready. So for this reason, that this program works, that if dishwasher goes out, you're covered. There's a small copay, but you're covered. Water heater explodes, you're covered. So it gives you, for a small fee per month, it protects you from a high expense. 21 is our utility management service, another program that you can opt into. And so if you decide to opt into this program, then the tenant has to agree to it as well. But we put all the utilities in our name. So oftentimes the tenant will leave, we call you, you got to put the utilities in your name, you forget, cleaners get there, they can't use the vacuum because electricity is not on, water's not on, tenant moves back in, you forget to turn them off, the tenant forgets to turn them on, they call the gas company, it's going to take, it's just always a nightmare. With this program, we put all the utilities in our name, and when a tenant moves in, we charge them 1 monthly bill for all the utilities, and then every year we true it up. So let's say they're paying, we estimate it's going to be $100 a month for gas, water, and electric, and they go a full year, and instead of being $1,200, the actual bill is $1,500. Then we would charge them that $300 forward over the next 12 months again if they renew. If they didn't renew, we would just take it out of the security deposit. But then once they leave, it stays in our name. So we can immediately, the utilities stay on, so it's easy to transition to the next tenant. There's a one-time fee to put the utilities in our name from yours, and that's $50, and then there's no cost to you after that if the tenant participates in the UMS. This is just an example of distribution. Even though we may get the rent on, in this case, I showed that we get the rent on the 4th of April, but you don't get the funds on the 16th because the bank has a 3-day, bank day hold on all funds when they get wired in. So we may get the funds on the 4th, but they're not good to the 9th. And we turn around and send them to you, and you receive the 11th, but with weekends, they're not clear to you to the 16th. So what we really say to you is don't count on this month's rent to pay this month's mortgage. This month's rent should pay next month's mortgage. But we just want to give an example of the distribution. Standard mediation and arbitration language, you can read it on your own. Attorney's fees, of course, modification. So 28, certainly important to me. This simply says, if I want to make changes in the contract, I just notify you of the change in the contract, and you have 30 days to opt out of the contract at that point, or say you don't want to participate in that program or that change. And so that way we don't have to get everything signed by you. I can send out a modification. Here's what we're changing. Are you okay with this? Yes, great, move on. So you may see that about every year or two, I modify something in this contract, or I add a program we're doing. That's it. You sign, we sign. I think, our business model is typically you're going to have a local property manager. We are the centralized, we do all the centralized operations here in kind of North Anaheim. But we have property managers from Apple Valley to Temecula to now Coachella Valley. They're the ones that are doing your inspections, doing your leasing, doing your renewals, working with your vendors. We're the back office, and we do compliance, insurance, and program management and marketing. So thank you for your time, and we hope this helps you better understand your contract.